Hello my Vikings and welcome back to the channel. Today I thought we'd try something a little bit different. I've got these Free-Gors for the Beasts of Chaos army, and for a while I played them, but I'm gonna be honest, I didn't really enjoy playing Beast of Chaos, so today we're going to convert him into a Freeguild Guardsman for the Cities of Sigmar. We're going to start by removing just a couple of little things from the model. He's got this severed head on his belt that I don't think is going to fit right, so we're just going to remove it and kind of shape it a little bit to look like it's part of his tunic. Once that's done, we want to replace his axe head with a sword. So we're going to need to clip it off just above the hands. Now to make his sword, I took these cocktail skewers that I got from Party City and trimmed it up a little bit, cutting it to a length of 1.5 inches, and then adding a clipping from a hair curler that I got from the dollar store to make a crossguard. A little drop of super glue should hold it in place, but to be completely honest, I probably should have hot glued this and then super glued around it, just to make it a little bit more firm. Just to be sure, I'm going to super glue the sides of the crossguard to his hand just to kind of help solidify the hold. Okay then, that's looking pretty good so far. Now I printed this base out on my 3D printer using a flagstone texture and a little bit of unevenness to give it some kind of depth. So we're going to remove him from the GW base, trying to be a little bit careful to not disturb the sword since it is still a little bit wet glue. A little bit of the foot stayed behind, so we're going to kind of flatten out the bottom of his hoof so that we have a clean surface to attach to the new base. Now, a secret I learned a long time ago is if you want to make sure the model never comes off the base again, use a lot of super glue, but also kind of use a little bit of sandpaper and sand the top of the base and the bottom of the foot to make sure that it's a very strong bond. And after it's dried, I base coated it with a little bit of wraithbone. And we are ready to get started with some basilicanum gray. We're going to paint the base with this to kind of give that flagstone a stone earthy texture. Now the earthiness of this won't really show up with just the basilicanum. We're going to use some washes for that a little bit later. And switch to a smaller brush so that we can use the basilicanum on a few segments of armor. So he's got these greaves and some leggings and some handguards. So I kind of wanted all of those to be in the basilicanum to give it a kind of aged metal look. And I decided to adjust the camera for a little bit closer view, just so you can really kind of see how the colors go in place. Alright, while that's drying, we're going to switch to some Talazar blue for his cloak. I like painting squads in identical colors just because it makes it a lot easier to tell which model is part of which squad. So This guy's going to get blue for his cloak, and every model in his squad is going to get the same color, just for easy identification. Now there's a little bit of spillover here, and I'll fix that off camera, just so that I don't bore everyone with the details. And I forgot the bottom part of the legs in the Basilicanum, so quick touch up on that. So now we're going to use some Agrax Earthshade. This is going to go in 2 coats on the base of the model. So we're doing our first coat, and you can already see the color change, going from that, just dull gray to a kind of reddish gray. And this will become more pronounced once we do the second coat, really kind of make it look like an earthy flagstone. Quick removal of a cat hair that got stuck to the model. I love my cats, but they get in the worst places. You can already see that texture come to life. So now, for all the fleshy areas, we're going to go over it with a little bit of Guilliman flesh. Looking back, if I had known that I was going to convert this model ahead of time, I probably would have painted sections of it before putting it together, because painting the hands around the weapon while it's attached, not exactly the easiest thing. I really should have switched to my angled brush to get these harder to reach places. And if anyone's wondering where to get a good angle brush to use, I suggest any mid to high-end makeup store. They're going to have them, they're actually pretty affordable, and they are really great for getting the small, hard-to-reach areas on models. Though you will get a couple of odd looks here and there when you go to buy them. Quick Basilicanum gray on the kind of head plate with the spike here. So now, because he is a Gor that converted to Sigmar, he does still have these kind of furry areas, so we're going to touch those up with the Gor Grunt of Fur. So now he's got this chainmail section on his front, so we're going to do that in Lead Belcher, just to kind of give it a different color tone from the Basilicanum that we've been using. And because this is a base paint, not a contrast paint, we don't really have to worry about any areas that have spilled over before onto the chainmail, because this will just cover them right up. But we do want to be cautious and make sure that we don't spill over with this, because otherwise we've got to go back and do quite a few touch-ups. Alright, so now for the handle, we're going to use some contrast wildwood, just to give it a nice dark wood texture and feel. He's got this little spiky club on his waist, so we're going to do that as well. I like the idea of him having a small backup weapon that's just basically a small club. So now we're going to do the hooves and all of his horns in Morghast bone. Now we're eventually going to touch these up with a couple of different shades. but we're not going to do them both in the same shade, because that would get a little repetitive. I will say, while I didn't overly enjoy playing Beast of Chaos as an army, I do like the various imageries that their armies had. The idea that the Gors would just take bones and use them as part of their armor was actually kind of intriguing to me. Alright, with that done, we're going to paint the hand grip with snakebite leather, and we're also going to do his belt. There's also a lot of straps on this model that are kind of a leather strap feel to them, so we're going to do those as well, but we're going to do those with a much finer brush. Otherwise, we're just going to have tons and tons of spillover. So this is one of the smaller brushes that I have, and it is great for doing very small details like this. And as you can see, it does great work just kind of barely getting paint only on the areas that we want, and hardly any spillover, which is really what I wanted in this situation. Alright, and now we're going to switch to some Hashut copper, and that is going to be for the front of his belt and the two kind of metal straps holding these horns in place on his chest. And now we're switching to some Retributor armor. This is a very stark, kind of deep gold coloration. And originally I was going to do these skulls on his belt as, actual skulls, like they were old trophies, but given that he is a Free-Gor of East City, of the Cities of Sigmar now, I wanted him to have, actual golden decorations, so maybe he took old skulls and dipped them in gold, and now he wears them, because, he's civilized now. And a quick touch on the crossguard here. Alright, so now we're going to grab some skeleton horde. This is going to make all of the horns look kind of like an aged bone look. You can make them a little sun-bleached if you didn't do the Morngast bone before doing this. Like if it was just the wraith bone and you did the touch-up like this, it would look like a kind of bleached bone instead of an aged bone. And we're just going to grab our fine detail brush and touch up the hairs sticking out of the bottom of his leggings. A bit of advice: if you're going to paint multiple sections on a model, save one area to paint last so that you have something on the top of the model to hold on to. And speaking of the top of the model, we're going to paint the sword itself with lead belcher. Now, if you want kind of a Damascus look to the blade, kind of paint it in waves instead of straight lines like I'm painting here. Now, I didn't want a Damascus look, I just wanted a straight piece of metal, so I did straight strokes. And now for the base, we're doing our second coating of Agrax Earthshade. Now, I'm being a little bit heavy in the kind of crack and crevice areas, because I want this wash to get kind of deep down into the base. just to give those shadows a little bit of extra depth. Alright, so now around the rim of the base, we're going to paint it with Abaddon Black. And as you can see, I actually printed this out with the word Greatsword around the rim of the base. That's because if I ever decide to use this guy in a tournament, I want there to be no mistaking him for any other model in the army. As per tournament rules, you have to be clear about what it is that your model is supposed to be representing. So this will eliminate any confusion if I ever play an official game with him. And yes, the base is the correct size. Alright, so now we're going to use Rakeland Flesh Shade just to give his skin tones a little bit more depth. Now for the straps on his face, I'm not really being cautious about it, I'm just kind of painting over them like this. There's still enough of a color difference that it's not going to be noticeable. Alright, so now the rest of the model is going to get a coating of null oil. And right away you can see the chainmail immediately comes to life as soon as we've got some shade on all those little crevices. This is also going to darken the overall model, kind of giving him a gritty, battle-worn look. I'd also recommend, if you're wanting different areas to be a little bit contrasting without having to paint them different ways or with different colors, use the same color but different shades. It'll give a subtle difference to the model and just kind of adds a little bit more life to it. One last touch here. And we're gonna kind of mop up a little bit of these extra pools of null oil. So now moving back to our Retributor armor, we're just gonna very lightly brush this over the Greatsword text, just so that when it's on the table, it really pops out and sells the fact that he is a great swordsman who has converted to the Cities of Sigmar, not a traditional great swordsman. And we're just gonna touch it across the top of the text, just to kind of solidify the color. And here we are with the finished piece. So this is my first conversion for my Cities of Sigmar army. I've been playing them as proxies up until now, and I can't wait to get the rest of the army finished. So, thank you everyone for watching. Please hit that like button, subscribe for future content, and comment in the comments section. Remember everyone, victory or Valhalla.